Muckross Abbey was founded between 1440 and 1448 by Donald MacCarthy Mór. Although it was in the MacCarthy Mór lordship, the area nearest the abbey, called Aodhagán Ó Donnchadha, or just Onacht in English, was held by the O'Donoghue Mór sept, though the abbey and its lands came to be owned by the church. Construction of the abbey started in the 1440s, although it wouldn't be finished much later. Indeed, the transept, an extension to the main church or nave, was added on later, probably in the early 16th century. Originally called Oir Bhealach, Eastern Way, the abbey prospered. In part, this was because of the Franciscans, who had close ties with Gaelic lords and who were able to use their international contacts. One friar, Nave O'Donoghue, was made Irish Vicar General for the order in 1460. At this time, the building work in the abbey seems to have stopped. Probably due to the friars' international connections, Rome stepped in to help, issuing an indulgence in 1468 for those who would contribute to its construction. A few years later, in 1475, the main part of the building was reported completed. The abbey prospered and quickly became the burial place for numerous Gaelic lords, including MacCarthys, O'Donoghues and O'Sullivans. Obviously, it was a place of prestige to be buried in, and one that illustrated the power of the MacCarthy Mór sept. Indeed, these burials continued even after the overthrow of the Gaelic political system. Three important Gaelic poets from the 17th and 18th centuries are buried there: Séafraidh Ó Donnchadha, Eoghan Rua Ó Rathaille, and Eoghan Rua Ó Súilleabháin. The 16th and 17th centuries were a period of turbulence and horror in Ireland. The Gaelic political system was overthrown, and the country ravaged by a series of wars. This led to the downfall of Muckross Abbey. Like other monasteries in Ireland and England, its dissolution was ordered by Henry VIII, probably in 1541 or 42. This had little impact initially, but meant that the abbey and its land now belonged to the English crown. Under Elizabeth, the political situation in Ireland deteriorated. Her policies caused numerous rebellions and wars. The Desmond rebellions completely disrupted Munster, as the Gaelic and Old English inhabitants struggled to survive in a political environment biased against them. The Second Desmond rebellion was particularly dangerous to the abbey. Fighting took place nearby between John of Desmond, the Earl of Desmond's brother, and John Zeus, the local English commander, while nearby areas were probably attacked by soldiers from both sides, and Tig, son and heir of Donald MacCarthy Mór, was taken as a hostage by English soldiers. Furthermore, O'Donoghue Mór joined the rebellion. He was killed, and his land, the lordship of Aodhagán Ó Donnchadha, declared forfeit and given to Valentine Browne, ancestor of the Earls of Kenmare. This land included both Ross Castle and Killarney. However, Donald MacCarthy Mór argued that the lands were his, and the Crown, needing his support, agreed. In 1587, the Crown ordered that the abbey be leased to Donald MacCarthy Mór. However, this does not seem to have occurred. 2 years later, the abbey was attacked and occupied by English soldiers. The friars had some advance notice of the attack and hid some of their chalices on a nearby island, but 2 were captured, tortured and killed. The friars did not return to the abbey for 20 years or so. In 1595, it was granted to an English planter, Captain Robert Cullum. MacCarthy Mór was in a difficult position. His only legitimate son had died around 1587. His heir was thus his daughter Ellen. His vast and strategically important lands were coveted by many English planters. He was also short of money. Doing his best to survive in this fractious political climate, he attempted a spectacular double-cross. He mortgaged some of his land, including Oodhagán Ó Donnchadha to Valentine Browne, and agreed to marry his daughter Ellen to Browne's son, which would have seen Browne inheriting his territory. However, she actually married Florence MacCarthy Ray, whose family held the MacCarthy lordship of Carbery in Cork. This led to even more turbulence and the arrest of both Florence MacCarthy and Ellen, essentially for political reasons. In 1596, Donald MacCarthy Mór died and was buried in Muckross, without leaving any clear heir. By this time, the 9 Years' War was raging, and Munster exploded in rebellion in 1598. However, the defeat of Hugh O'Neill led to the collapse of the Gaelic political world and the extension of English law all over Ireland. The MacCarthy Mór lordship would be abolished shortly afterwards, while English planters such as the Browns quickly gained power and influence. It was also a time of religious persecution and difficult for abbeys and other religious institutions to survive. In the midst of this political catastrophe, the friars and Muckross tried to survive. In the early 17th century, they actually returned to the abbey and rebuilt part of the complex. In 1626, a plaque commemorating this was placed on the north wall of the chancel. The large chimney dividing the refectory from the kitchen, which can still be clearly seen, seems to date from this period. However, in 1629, the friars were driven away again. Though they returned once more, another turbulent period in Irish history is beginning. In 1641, Irish Catholic lords rebelled, eventually forming the Confederacy of Kilkenny, leading to a period of war which only ended after Cromwellian forces brutally defeated the Confederacy and imposed a new political and economic structure in the country. They plundered and burned Muckross Abbey, marking the end of its use by the Franciscans. After this, Muckross was left a ruin. Somehow, it stayed in the possession of MacCarthys until 1770, when it was inherited by the Herbert family. Finally, it came into state ownership in 1934. The Abbey is a beautiful place, tranquil and very peaceful, at least on the rainy spring day I visited. It's a remarkable testament to Gaelic Ireland and to the Gaelic septs whose lords are buried here, whether they were MacCarthys, O'Donoghus, O'Sullivans, or others. Gaelic culture is too often misunderstood and misrepresented as something archaic, static, or indeed doomed. Rather, it was vibrant, dynamic, and, like all cultures, constantly changing. Gaelic Ireland may have been a peripheral area and poorer than England or France, but still had deep connections with Europe and was in contact with political, economic, religious, and intellectual developments there. Something interesting to think about when exploring the ruins of Muckross Abbey, or better, Oir Bhealach.